Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gridiron Review Podcast. I'm Zach, that's Jack, and we are back after a short break of running our draft review series on TikTok. This is the first of our Offseason in Review podcast series, where we'll be going through team by team, talking about their additions and losses, and then predicting their record and placing within their division. At the end, we will be doing our playoff predictions based on our teams that make it. The first division we're going to look at is the AFC North, and going from the standings last year, our first team in this series is the Cleveland Browns.
We're going to break this down into offense and defense. So to start, the losses for the Browns on offense are Indy Yanovich, the fullback, Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, Austin Hooper, and J.C. Treader. They did not retain any of their offensive players. In terms of free agent pickups, Jacoby Brissett and Joshua Dobbs for the quarterback room, Jakeem Grant for the receiver room, and Ethan Poicic at the offensive line. Starting here, we think that Poicic, with the releasing of J.C. Treader, is most likely going to kick in and start at the center spot. With the Browns line staying pretty much intact, we don't expect much of a step back from them. As long as everyone stays healthy, that still should be one of the best units in the league. Jakeem Grant was kind of an interesting signing just because they have a speed receiver who returns in Anthony Schwartz. So either Schwartz isn't developing in the way that they would hope, or maybe they have a different role in mind for Grant. It's kind of hard to tell. In terms of trades, everyone knows they acquired Deshaun Watson and a fourth-round pick from this year's draft in exchange for 3 first-round picks, 2022 through 2024. A 2023 third and a 2022 fourth. They also got a 2022 seventh for backup Case Keenum, and they got Amari Cooper for basically a 5th-round pick. Personally, I am not an Amari Cooper fan. I think he's a little bit overrated, but for a 5th-round pick, how can you say no?
Yeah, of all the trades for the receivers that got made this offseason, which there was plenty, you can argue that the Devontae Adams trade, the Tyreek Hill trade were fair. The Amari Cooper trade was not. I don't know what Dallas was thinking. I don't know why they couldn't have gotten, even like a 3rd-round pick, but it was a, great trade in what was an off season of, as we noted, high risk, high reward. We've covered the Watson trade before. We're not going to go too in depth about the politics of it. The only thing we wanted to mention is that the recent news is not the best. And when we talk about the record, we have Watson on a 4-game suspension from the league. It could be more, it could be less, but we just felt like 4 games sounds about right. But if the news continues to not be the best, even if it's just public opinion, the NFL could suspend him longer. They also, on the offensive side, as of yesterday or 2 days ago, extended David Njoku on a very lucrative deal for a guy that has shown some upside, but also has not been an elite player, and he's getting paid to be one. So they're going to be counting on him to fill Austin Hooper's shoes and then some based on the money he's making. They, as Jack noted, lost Jarvis Landry, and they basically replaced his slot role with David Bell, who they took in the 3rd. I was pretty high on him. I initially had him as a 1st-round grade until he tested the combine, and I figured he was going to fall a little bit. Still, the 3rd round is a great spot to get him. He should play right away, and I think the Browns, when Watson gets there, are going to look to open up the offense more. I don't imagine you give up that much draft capital to run the same offense that you did with Baker. And I think my biggest disappointment on the offense is that they weren't able to find a trade for Baker before he self-sabotaged further. And it sounds like I read a report that they had a trade lined up with Carolina and they refused to take on the amount of salary that Carolina wanted them to. So now Baker's just going to sit on the bench. I highly doubt he plays if Watson's suspended. I imagine it would go right to Brissett. I don't know if you have an opinion on that one.
Yeah, it sounds like they believe that they're going to get Baker to play in Watson's absence, and there's no way, of all people, you're going to get Baker Mayfield to play for his replacement. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, he was already petty to begin with about the trade. And listen, the reports are that they told him they weren't going to make the move, they weren't going to do it. And you can think about Baker what you want. I was a supporter of him until a few of his podcast interviews I didn't think were great. But it's still, you should just be open and honest with your quarterback about the situation, just like Atlanta has been open with Matt Ryan before they traded him. And it just feels like Cleveland's going to Cleveland, and that there's a lot of murky water about the situation. On, you know, as Jack noted with Jakeem Grant, maybe they want to run not a spread offense, but a more open offense where you get 3 or 4 receiver sets with Bell, Cooper. I guess Donovan Peoples-Jones hopefully takes a step forward. And then you're right, if Schwartz doesn't work out, or maybe Jakeem Grant is just insurance because Schwartz was hurt, I believe. I don't know. I mean, I like a lot of the moves they made, but it's not solid. It's not solidified. And as we discussed, we think that Cleveland's going to be better in the long run, but this year might be another disappointing season for them, especially in the offensive side of the ball. If Watson's suspended, Jacoby Brissett is a fine backup, but you've seen what he can do. It's not going to be a high flying offense like you probably want.
Offensively, I think you look at what they've done, and like Zach said, it definitely suggests that they want to open up the offense. I think that's why you choose someone like Njoku over Austin Hooper. But if for some reason they decide to run the same offense, then the Njoku contract looks even more questionable because he's not the blocker that Hooper was. And even on top of that, they drafted Cincinnati's Jerome Ford in the 5th round. So what are you doing with all these running backs? You're certainly not throwing passes to all of them. So I don't know what the plan is for the running back room moving forward or the offense. It just seems a little confusing at the moment.
Especially because like the running back market is ice cold. So it's not like you're looking to trade. I assume it would be Kareem Hunt in this situation. I doubt they'd move Nick Chubb, but what are you going to get for him? Probably a 5th rounder at this point, maybe a 4th rounder, but it's just, I guess if you have enough injuries, it makes sense, but a 5th rounder is still a decent investment in a running back when you have, undrafted free agent Dearness Johnson showing that he actually can be a decent player, and obviously Chubb and Jerome Ford now and Kareem Hunt. And it just, I don't know. I know we've talked about this before. It almost feels like they don't have a plan.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing about Kareem Hunt, though, is if you want to open up the offense, it seems like Hunt would make more sense to keep. If he is the one that you want to trade, is his market really going to be that high? Because he's a free agent after this year. Who's going to pay for someone they can go out and get themselves later on?
Yeah, especially when you see guys like McKissick hit the free agent market and Duke Johnson, the guys that can do a similar job, maybe not to the level of Kareem Hunt as a runner specifically, but pass catching running backs, you can always find them. You can always pull a Madden move also and convert a wide receiver to running back.
Do you have anything else to add offensively?
Nope. Let's switch over to the defense.
All right. So on defense, their losses start with 3 D linemen, Malik Jackson, Malik McDowell, and Tack McKinley. At linebacker, Malcolm Smith, and in the secondary, MJ Stewart. So on paper, it doesn't seem like the losses are that big. What I will say is that guys like Malcolm Smith and Malik Jackson, with Super Bowl experience, you are losing a serious veteran presence. Even if they were sitting on the bench, that having veterans on your team to lead, crucial, extremely, extremely crucial. Players retained. They kept Sheldon Day, Jadeveon Clowney, and Ronnie Harrison. We aren't very high on Clowney. We think that if he was going to break out, it would have happened by now. It would have happened in the first year with Myles Garrett. But it's a 1-year deal for $10 million. So it's not like you're paying Clowney elite level edge money. So it's okay.
Or committing to him long term either.
Yeah. Clowney must think he has something to prove, though, because it sounds like he turned down multiple multi-year deals worth at least $4 or $5 million more a year. Free agent pickups, they went after Taven Bryan from Jacksonville. We love this pickup. We think it's a high reward pick if you can unlock his potential. Stephen Weatherly, Isaac Rochelle, rotational pieces across the line. And through trade, they got rid of Mac Wilson for New England's Chase Winovich. Our biggest thing for Cleveland heading in this offseason was finding that elite pass rusher that was going to get the pressure off of Myles Garrett to finally let him get the 20-plus sack season that we all know that he can get. Now, did they get the elite one like Chandler Jones that we thought was the perfect fit? Unfortunately not. But they added guys. They got Clowney back. They brought in Winovich, Weatherly, Taven Bryan as an interior rusher, Alex Wright in the third, Perrion Winfrey in the fourth. So I think they're just going to take a different approach here and say, if we can't get the elite level guy, we're going to rotate through as many guys as we can to keep everyone fresh. And Zach kind of covered the edges and the D linemen, so I'll let him take over here.
Yeah, when they re-signed Clowney, I immediately thought that's the buy time for Alex Wright to develop because he's not a day one starter. He's got a lot of upside, but he definitely can't be thrown into the fold right away. Vinovich, I mean, I think that trade kind of cancels out, and I don't really know how much of an impact he has, but they just gave up. Oh, I guess a linebacker that they weren't going to start to do it, and maybe you do unlock Winovich from his rookie year. I think where he had 6 sacks or 7 sacks, and then that looks like a great trade at the time. Perrion Winfrey in the fourth was one of my favorite picks on day 3. While I didn't see him as a first rounder, like some people after the Senior Bowl were pushing, he clearly is a decent pass rusher. I don't think he's going to give you much in run defense. But when you have Clowney, if instead of having that other end that gets 15 sacks, if you have your 2 defensive tackles and your other end that can get 5 sacks each, maybe 6 sacks, 20 between all of them, I think that's a similar positive. And I still think they're going to wish they had gone and got, whether it be Chandler Jones or when they could have traded, I guess, like Grady Williams for Yannick Ngakoue based on the trade that the Colts made. I think that they're going to wish they had done something like that, but they didn't ignore it. So, take with that what you will. They took Martin Emerson in the third, and I guess, like I said, Grady Williams is not working out because everyone seems to think that pick signaled Williams' issues on the depth chart, not Newsome or obviously not Denzel Ward. So if that's the case, that's a good pick. Especially in the AFC where it's going to be a bloodbath. This will be a common theme when we talk about team reviews. The teams in the AFC that loaded up on secondary, where it feels like that was a smart move. You want to talk about the defense?
Yeah. So in the back end, I think my biggest issue with Cleveland right now is the fact that they didn't add to the linebacker room. They lost, like I said, they lost Malcolm Smith, he's former Super Bowl MVP. That's leadership that you lose it. Mac Wilson, young guy, I mean, injury concern. So it, like Zach said, that trade kind of cancels out. Right now, you have Wusu Karamoa, who great rookie season, but outside of him, I mean, Jacob Phillips didn't look that great, and
Plus,
whoever
he's had
else.
a major injury too.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, I forget exactly what it was. I think he tore his pec or something.
It's just
Sion Taki.
Oh yeah, great name. I mean, that linebacker room is young, so I mean, I guess there's still room for improvement, but I mean, you would have hoped that they would have taken someone that could have, made an impact right away, even if it's one of the veterans. And there's still a decent amount of veterans out there that you could still go after, but
or in the draft for that matter, there's a lot of linebackers that stuck around on the board. I mean, Nakobe
Dean fell to the third round.
So did Tyndall.
In the back end, they're, as of right now, it seems like their secondary is in full health. You get Johnson back, Delpit comes back, Ward is extended. You gave Troy Hill back to the Rams, which is whatever. You still have Newsome. You went after Emerson, Greedy. The depth is there, and hopefully none of their starters get hurt, but this seems like what they were doing was to, prepare for this injury wave that maybe they're expecting to come, because going after a corner with your first pick in the draft was a little bit head scratching. Emerson was a good player. Third round was probably right around where I had him going. So that's fine. But if no one gets hurt, then you just have a whole loaded secondary for no reason. And you got a weak linebacker room, and the D line is, like I said, it's going to be rotational. So it really depends on who's willing to step up in a strong role there.
Yeah, and as I'm looking at the draft class, the part where the pick where you wish they would have taken the linebacker is probably the Cade York pick. They took him in the 4th round. Anytime you take a kicker or special teamer in the 4th round or earlier, it's not, even though the Browns have had their kicking issues, like you could have waited. I don't know that anyone else would have taken a kicker in the 4th. It just feels like they could have done something else there. And if that ends up with a linebacker, we would be probably talking a little bit different. I mean, York could come out and be a great kicker. I guess that makes up for it, but there's plenty of linebackers there. And to your point, they've neglected the linebacker room. So does that mean tight ends are going to terrorize them all year? It could be.
I mean, you look at what they did, and it seems like, I mean, I guess depending what they run schematically, it's an upgrade on what they had. Offensively, you look at Cooper and Bell over Landry, probably an upgrade. Defensive line, Malik Jackson, McDowell, and McKinley, you replace with a whole giant group of guys. Secondary stays intact. For us, when we went through the schedule, we predicted them at 8-9, which would rank them third in the division. And again, part of that had to do with, the Watson suspension or the suspected suspension. But you just look at some of the teams that they have to play in the AFC, and as nice as I think their roster is, I don't know that they can pull out wins against teams like the Chargers or the Chiefs, or even within their own division. Baltimore, I mean, and we'll get to them. That's the next team in this division, but I just don't think they had the personnel to cover what they have offensively. And Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl with no line and hardly a secondary. I mean, the number 2 corner spot was Eli Apple. So no need to go further on that, but they improved the corner spot. I mean, it was a little wonky, which we'll talk about later, but they improved the secondary, and Baltimore seems to be getting healthy, and we have Pittsburgh coming 4th in division, but in division games, you can never count anyone out. So
yeah, especially with this division where it seems like the teams are, it wouldn't surprise me if Pittsburgh beat anyone in this division. It wouldn't surprise me if Cleveland beat anyone in this division. But as you said, for our money, we have them finishing 8-9. Like I said in the beginning, we think Watson will have a 4-game suspension. If it's more, this record could be worse. If it's less, this record could be better. It's just that's a factor we won't know for probably a little while now. And we went under the assumption that it was a 4-game. And we think without Watson, this team is weak. And that Brissett, again, good backup. I just don't see him leading to wins, because if I remember right, without looking it up, they open up on a pretty hard stretch of games.
Like he was saying, we have the Browns going 0-4 during that our predicted Watson suspension, and I guess people are going to kind of look at us funny when they see that they're going to go 4-9 with Watson. But you got to remember, first off, Watson hasn't taken a snap in over a year. You can look good in practice all you want. Is it going to translate to game day? And secondly, are his weapons going to stay healthy? Is Njoku going to stay on the field? Is Cooper going to stay on the field? Is Schwartz going to stay on the field? Who knows? And if they don't, the defense, I don't think they got extremely better. I think it was maybe a step up, but
yeah, like a hair.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they're on the field for too long, they're not going to be able to hold up as long as you want them to.
And as noted, we think that they are better in the long run. So after this season, when you most likely get a full season of Watson, a full off season, Cleveland's probably going to look much better. And if Watson comes back towards the end of the season and proves he still got it, then you probably can attract more free agents and get people to believe that this team can be competitive and maybe even win a Super Bowl in future seasons.
Depending on how everything plays out with their contracts. I mean, Ward, I think Ward's is probably the safest contract that they did this offseason. But when you look at Watson, like Zach said, if for some reason the news keeps staying at where it is or worse, is that contract going to come back and bite you in the butt? If Njoku goes down or he's not what you wanted him to be, that contract's going to bite you in the butt, because yeah, you could dump him off, but you still got to pay a lot of that. And then it's how you're going to bring in the giant free agents that Watson is most likely going to attract if they start, putting it together.
Yeah, and then you get a situation like Baker where you have a heavy contract for a player that just nobody wants to take on the money for. Because I don't think any other team would have signed Njoku to that kind of deal. It was curious when they fifth-yeared him, and it was curious, right? He was fifth-year, not franchise tagged.
I think so, yeah.
Either way, it was curious when they did it. It was, I would argue, the most head scratching one of all of the ones. Yeah, it was 5 years, I think. And it was just even more weird that they're signing him to this extension. That when you look at guys like Evan Ingram, I know that's not the best example, but OJ Howard, Gerald Everett, look at what the deals those guys got. Like $5 million a year. For OJ Howard, it was $2 million a year. I don't know what they saw in Njoku that commanded. I think it ended up being like 10 to
It was
11
4
million.
years, 56.7 or something.
Yeah, like I don't know what Cleveland saw that thought, this is how much he should get. But props to Njoku's agent on negotiating that deal.
I mean, if we are right about them wanting to open up the offense, you don't need 3 tight ends. So, I mean, at that rate, why do you not go with Harrison Bryant, who flashed last year on a rookie deal, and spend your money elsewhere?
Or just use Bryant and let Njoku play out that final year. He's not going to, even if he had a crazy season, he's not going to get, $10 million a year is a lot for a tight end. So I don't think it's going to all of a sudden push the needle on saving money by signing him now. It doesn't feel like it anyway.
No.
But with that in mind, do you have anything you want to add?
Good.
This closes out the Cleveland Browns. Again, we have them at 8-9 and third in the division. Our next team up will be the Baltimore Ravens, and we look forward to seeing you there.